So today is Be'ez Hashem Chulin Mem Aleph. It's the last block Be'ez Hashem before Perek Elu Trefis. Tomorrow is the big Elu Trefis, so we're Be'ez Hashem finish this Perek today, hopefully. So we're going to finish up the second Perek, and we're going to have Be'ez Hashem. So what are we doing? What? Yeah, Be'ez Hashem. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to go through the second Shita that we had before Ula and Rav Huna that held that Adam Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi. Now we're going to have another Shita that holds that ain't Adam Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi even if you do a Maisa. And then the Gemara is going to bring a machlekes tanoim, and the Gemara is going to say modify that shita and say that even though the truth is that Adam Oisad Davar Shein Shaloi, but is a svar of Litzuri Kemachav and Bayi Yisrael. We'll see a little bit. On Be'ez Hashem, we have to say over the Chaim Moses murdered Gechidish and pshat in that sugya Be'ez Hashem murdered Gelamdish sugya. Then we're going to have two mishnayos. One mishnah is going to be a mishnah about a gzeira where it looks like you're shechting lavei dezaro that it's possible, and the next one is going to be where it's a gzeira that it's of which karbonis that if somebody says he's shechting for a carbon that looks like Shech's Chulin, it looks like he's shechting for a carbon. So al gezerah that people are going to think that it's mutter to shech b'chutz. That's also usher, and that's going to bring us to Be'ez Hashem till the end of the perek. Sok the Gemara. So we're starting Mem Amid Beis about 6 lines to the bottom. Sok the Gemara right. Rav Nachman v'Rav Amram v'Rav Yitzchak Amri ain't Adam Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi. No. Not Adam Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi, and Adam Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi. Now, over here, there's an important Rashi, because Rashi discusses what are we talking about here? Are we talking about a Maisa Kolduhu, or we're talking about even by a big Maisa, right? In other words, we had before Ula and Rav Huna, they were saying that Adam Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi, even by Maisa Kolduhu, right? And so now Rav Nachman and Rav Amar and Rav Yitzchak are coming to argue. Are they coming to argue only on that point? And they say, but by a Maisa Koldu ain't other Maisa Davar Shein Shaloi, that even though you did a Maisa, but since it wasn't a full Maisa, ain't other it still ain't, still don't have the power to ask somebody else's thing. Or Rav Nachman, Rav Amar, Rav Yitzchak, they argue to the complete other extreme, and they argue that ain't other Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi even if it's a complete Maisa. So Rashi's madcha, that second sad. Rashi says there were those that learned like that, but Rashi says, I think he even says Yesh Garsim. It's the Mefarshi, and Rashi says it can't be because the Maisa. Because the Gemara later on is going to ask for Menasech, and Menasech is where the guy or whoever the aser is doing a complete Maisa. He did a Maisa of Avodah Zarah. It's a complete Maisa. It's not a Maisa Koldu. And Afal became the Gemara is asking a kasha. What are you asking a kasha? But he is talking about a Maisa. It's a Maisa Gam. It's not a Maisa Koldu. So Rashi is a raya that you can't that our sugi is talking about even by a Maisa Gama. Ain't other Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi is a rule, is a complete rule. At least like these Amoraim. The Rashba is meyashiv. Those is the Mefarshi. The Rashba is Mefar is matri. He says you have to say that over there since it's fort, it's a hezek shein and nikah, so that it has like it takes on a role like a Maisa Koldu. That's if you want to be Miyash, that is the Mefarshi. Zok Timar right. Rav Nachman, Rav Amar, Rav Yitzchak Amri, ain't no the Moisei Davar Shein Shaloi meisvei. So we're going to ask a kasha from the brayso that we were working with all along. Yeah, that what Hashoichei Chatos b'Shabbos b'Chutz Lavei Tzkachom. So he did 3 things. He shechted Tzai Shabbos and it was Chutz and Avodas Kacham Chayiv Shalosh Chatois. He's going to be Chayiv 3 Chatois because there are 3 Chayiv creases here. One is Shchita b'Shabbos, Shchita b'Chutz, right? Kachim b'Chutz, and shechting Avodas Kacham. Vil Kimdos, and the Gemara says, and based on the Kimdos, the Brayso says Dafka b'Chatos. Why did it say Dafka b'Chatos? So we explained that it must be that it has to be talking about by Oilas Ha'if. by chatas oif. The reason why we said chatas is because we wanted to mention, it's a code way of talking about a chatas oif. Why do we want to talk about dafka chatas oif? The teretz is that, like the Gemara before, it made sense a lot, right? That the like Ula and Rav Huna made a lot of sense. That since I'm always going to be afraid that it's going to be net, that since I have the power to aser it up, and once I aser it up, so then it's going to be afra ba'alma, so I won't be over any other yisurim. So I have to be talking about a chatas ha'oif, and a chatas ha'oif, which is an oif that I could be that the border between kosher and not having started any ma'isa and being and doing the full shechita is just a mashu, is a little mashu, right? You ready chatzi kanapogum, and then he just does a little bit, boom, and everything happened in that 1 second, right? So therefore, there'll never be a point where it already started. I already did a ma'isa koldu. There will never be a point where I already did a maisa and asked it and still want to be over any shechita. No, the shechita and the maisas, everything start and stop at that one little second, right? But akapanim, why do we have to do that? We understood the reason why I have to do that is why do we have to be talking about a chatas is because I'm going to ask her. What do you mean you're going to ask her? Why are you going to ask her? It's a chatas. A carbon? Carbon doesn't belong to you. What do you mean? What's going on over here? Carbonas don't belong to you. And if carbonas don't belong to you, so how could I ask her somebody else's thing? I can't answer it. It must be, is a right to Ula and Ravuna, right? It must be a right to Ula and Ravuna that what that Adam oisa davashena shalai by a maisa. That if you do a maisa, you could ask, and therefore it's very geshmak the brisa. Therefore we have to be talking about by a chatas. We have to be talking about a chatas, which means chatas ha'oif, and by chatas ha'oif, it could be talking about that one little second, that one little thing. That's going to be the Gemara's kasha. Frank the Gemara, but loit Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak loit these amoraim. Yeah, these amoraim that we call in that the Gemara uses a simon for noats because right you're going to say all three of them at once. It's not going to be so like noats like Rav Nachman Rav Yitzchak. How are we going to teach the brisa? Why the brisa have to be talking about by a chatos? Good, Gishmak. So that's the Gemara's kasha. Let's see the Gemara inside. Frek the Gemara, Meisvei, Ashoich Chatas B'Shabes, B'Chutz Lavidis Kachavim, Chayiv Shalosh Chatos, Vuk Minon. And we explain why we say Chatas, B'Chatas Ha'oif. And why do b'chatzi kanapagum? And the reason is because we were afraid that if it's going to be talking about anything besides a chatas oif b'chatzi kanapagum, the shechita takes some time, and shechita takes some time. It's going to be nesar before the shechita is completed. Frek the Gemara time the chatas oifu the kulu b'hadi adadi kasyon that everything happens all at 1 second. Moving to Amid Aleph to Mem Aleph Amid Aleph avol zevach loy, but every carbon not. The Gemara, what do you mean? This is a carbon. A carbon doesn't belong to you, your shechti, even if it's your carbon, but you don't own your carbon. And therefore, how is it going to be nasa? Why do I care? It should take time. And for the Gemara, the svara that we said before, we introduced before in the Murder svara that kiven the kanya leile kapara kiti de damya. That since he has somewhat of a kinyan in this carbon, that we're talking about the person himself. It's his own chatas, and since he himself is going to get a kapara in this carbon, so it's kiddi de damya, and he doesn't have the problem of ein adam oisad avshein shaloi, and therefore he will be able to he's going to be able to he's going to be able to answer this the carbon, even though it's not his, but it's his legabe kapara. Now, exactly why do we say these svaras and exactly how we say these svaras, we'll see maybe a little bit more when we talk about the Reb Chaim Oizer. Toshma from the Mishnah, Toshma be'zoichsen besakin v'shoichaten echad l'shum echad mikol elu. Ve'echad l'shum dava kasher shechita saipsula. So what did we say? We said that what? That you have two people holding onto a knife, and one of them is mechashev to one of the cheshbonis, one of the Shum Haram, Shum Gavais, whatever it is, and Lamaisa, and we assumed that one person owns it and one person doesn't own it, right? And after became he could answer it, and for the Gemara, Hachem Mayaskinan, the Islay Shutvis Be Gavo. That there is that they both have shutvis. Since they both have shutvis, so Mamela, it's Adam Oisa Davar Shein Shaloi. Now, what? Yeah, so it bleibt Shaloi. Now, over here in the Svar of Islay Shutvis Begavo, it's mavur in the Rishonim that there's a machlekes Rishonim what this lom this is. Is the vart that the pshat is that if you have Islay Shutvis Begavo, if I have a Shutvis in any part of it, so then memela there's no ein adam moised davar shein shaloi, or do we say that the pshat is that Islay Shutvis Begavo is dafka that I have to have a chelik in that part? It's mavur l'mashal. By what it'll be by a kerem, right? By mechitza kerem shenifritz over there. So the shaila is, how could I ask a yenim zach? So some rishonim say because it's like shutz v'gavo, because I have a chelik. I have one part. I have the klayim, not the right. I have the zroy. You have the zroyim. I have the klayim. Why is the pshat is why is it called islay shutz v'gavo? So those rishonim that say islay shutz v'gavo over there obviously hold that the pshat is that as long as I have a shutz in one chelik of this taruvis, that's going to be enough. And that's another raya, again, like the svara before of Kanyale the Kapara, Kididei Damya, that you don't need a complete bias over here. You don't need a complete bias for another Moisés of Shin Shalai. There is some sort of a gray area where if I'm somewhat about Manda Amar here, and I'm somewhat of if I have some sort of a right to be an actor here, then already there's going to be I'll be able to answer exactly how to do it and how to work it out. That's where you make the big bucks. That's where
they call that a vested interest.
Oh, if you have a vested interest, right? Very geschmack. Okay, so Gemara weiter Tashma. Yeah, if somebody goes and takes he goes over to somebody else's stuff, and he's either mitamet or he's medama, which medama means that he takes some truma and he puts it into his chulin, and now his chulin he had a whole bunch of chulin, and chulin he was able to get a full price, but now that there's some truma mixed in, so now it's going to be much cheap. Now it has to be sold at a much cheaper rate because only he has a much smaller demand for this thing, right? So the laws of supply and demand are going to say that it's much cheaper, right? Because only Kainim could buy, and Kainim could only eat it b'tayra. Yeah, it's much less of a useful product, right? Now, the menasech is that if he takes somebody else's wine and he pours it, so yeah, or he doesn't pour it, he just goes into his friend and he makes nisach by being kishkesh, by putting his hand in there and swishing it around, and it becomes yayin nesach. So b'shoygeg potter and b'mezid chayiv. Yeah, Rashi asks all your kashas. Yes, so that avada by mitam medam menasech avada, since it's be'etzem avada. There's no such thing as a shoygi. You should be part on a hezek. Now, vos that since it's a hezek shenik, so b'shoygig you're potter, but b'mezid they will mechayev you. Oh. Frakt Rashi, but how are you going to be chayiv b'mezid l'chura kamle b'dirab minei? So why are you going to be chayiv? How can you be chayiv? It's kamle b'dirab minei. So you shouldn't be mechayiv any moment. So Rashi, and this is the Gemara over there. It's really machloikis Rav and Shmuel, the Gemara in Gittin. That Rav says that over here it's different because when he picks it up, mid'ag beikana, that's when he's chayiv, and then right, but mid'ag beikana, and then he's not chayiv until he does the nisach. So memela, so that's why it's not bid, and therefore you're going to be chayiv. You're going to be chayiv by b'mezid. You're going to be chayiv b'mezid to pay. Hachanami, frekti marakasha, but lemaisa soif kol soif, since it's somebody else's thing, so I never asked it in the first place. The whole problem is if I asked it, but over here, since it's somebody else's thing, so I never asked it. If I didn't ask it, frekti gemara, that what that I ain't of the most davar shein shaloi. Everything more hachanami this lay shutvis be gava. Since he has a shutvis, so therefore there's no teretz of ain't of the most davar shein shaloi. Okay, so the Gemara vaytem. Kitanoi. Sagt the Gemara, meistens machlokes tanoim about the shaila. Sagt the Gemara, oivik kechavim shenesach yenu shel Yisrael. And this the Tanakama holds two chedushim. Oivik kechavim agoy shenisach yenu shel Yisrael shaloi b'fnei avodas kechavim. First of all, it didn't belong to him; it belonged to the guy, and he was being menasech the yenu shel Yisrael, and it was shaloi b'fnei avodas kechavim. Agavoch, I just want to say one shtickle. I mean. I don't know. You have to go through the Gemara over there how it stems, but it's interesting. Over here, Rashi says, you know what nisach means? Shekishkesh yadav l'seichalav that he smished it, right? But the plea is, why didn't Rashi explain it a few lines before? We said hamatama v'amadama v'amanasech. Over there, Rashi should have said that he was kishkesh yadav. Yeah. Why did Rashi wake up over here? When we said Hamanasi, he said Hamanasech Chayin Shechaver Lavedis Kechavim. Then a few lines later, when we say Shenisech Oiv Kechavim Shenisech Yenu Shel Yisrael Shleiv Nevedis Kechavim. Over here, Rashi says Shekishkesh Yadei L'Seichel Lavedis Kechavim. Why didn't Rashi say that before? Yeah, the teretz is. Ken zayin pashta zach, because we said before that the whole reason why you chayiv is because mid'ag beikana, that it's not at the same time, and there's no kamlei b'nei abnei. But there's a problem. You only chayiv when you did a b'mezid, and b'mezid what? You're going to be chayiv misa, so kamlei b'nei abnei. So Rashi, the teretz is that what? That it's not exactly the same time. Why is it not the same time? Because mid'ag beikana, and he's not chayiv on the nisach until he pours, right? But that's only if he did the nisach by picking up and pouring. But if he did the nisach by swishing around, then avada it won't be such a cheshbon of mid'ag beikana. And Mamela Rashi Taka only explained nisach as a kishkesh only in the second case, not in the first case. In the second case we were talking about a guy over there's no cheshbon of kamei b'rabminei. So Mela we don't have to be talking about that he picked it up. Good? Okay, weiter. Sagt die mal weiter. So the Tanakhama holds two chidushim that even though it doesn't belong to the guy of the wine, no problem. This is a Mefurish Kasha on those Amoraim. Secondly, even though he did it not in front of the getch, there was no getch there, and Ava became he had in mind for his getchka, and it's still going to be Leib Nisach. Rabbi Yudah ben Beseir, Rabbi Yudah ben Bava, Matir Noisim, they argue on both points. First of all, First of all, Nisach is only a proper Nisach if it's in front of the Getchka. You don't have the power to aser my wine against my will, which is the svara of ein adam oiseh davar she'eino shaloi, right? Well, I mean, it's a machlekes tanaim. We just said it's a machlekes tanaim, but oiseh davar she'eino shaloi. Yeah. You could be mazik somebody else's thing. Why can't you answer it? So far we had a machlokes amoraim, and now we're saying it's a machlokes tanaim kitanoim. Zok the Gemara v'Nachman v'Rav Rabbi Yitzchak Amri. I feel we could say that it's not mamish ganze machlokes tanaim. Why? Because I feel even like the Tanakhama that said that Adam oiseh davar she'eino shaloi hani mili kusi. That's all talking about by a goy. Like the case that the Brisa said, where it was a oivik kechavim shenisech yayin shel Yisrael aval Yisrael l'tzurei kamechavin. Over here is a svara, and this is a svara that we pass in the maskana that l'tzurei kamechavin. He's just pranking. He's pranking. He's pranking his friend. And by Yisrael, there's a svara of l'tzurei kamechavin, and therefore by l'tzurei kamechavin, We won't. Since there's a svara l'tzurika mechaven, therefore, even if a Yisrael does do something on his friends chafetzim, if ain't the moised of shaloi, because he's just pranking him. Yeah. Toshma. So I want to discuss Kega's Kasha and Chaim Moses Teretz, but let's do it at the next step of the Gemara, okay? Just to go through the cheshbon of Rashi and Tosfos. Toshma Beizachsim Besakin. Beizachsim Besakin v'Sheichatin Echad l'shum Echad mikol elu ve'Echad l'shum davar. Kasher shchitas psula. Now, what's the Gemara's kasha? We already answered this kasha. They were talking islay shutzvis begavei. Yeah, it's a plea. It's a plea. What is the Gemara's kasha over here? We could do islay shutzvis begavei. Yeah, we already answered this kasha. Zok Rashi, and Echanami. We could have said it. We could have still said the svara of islay shutzvis begavei. But Tosfos is not happy with that. So Tosfos, so if we already answered it, so why are we asking it again? Zok Tosfos, a moedig gezach. Zok Tosfos that since that what? Zok Tosfos a moedig svar, and Tosfos' pshat is a kasha on Rashi. Zok Tosfos, what's the Gemara's kasha now? Now we're not choishish of ein other moised davar shein shloi. There's no problem. Other moised davar shein shloi. Nor vasak Tosfos, nor vasak the Gemara. But still, when the Yisrael does it, even though he says I'm shechting l'shem harim, but it's a prank. Yeah, it's a prank. So what's going to make a difference if it's like shutzis v'gavei, not less like shutzis v'gavei? A prank is a prank. It's a plea. Who cares? Who cares that it's Islay Shutzvis v'gavei? Good, he's Islay Shutzvis. So he has a Shutzvis. He's still playing a prank. Why? Yeah, Islay Shutzvis v'gavei is the pshat is, it makes sense in a svara if the pshat is, I don't have the power. I'm not an owner here. How could I go and affect somebody else's thing? Teretz is, I'm an owner. Therefore, I'm a mandama. I'm what's called it? I'm a board member here, and therefore you can't tell me what to do.
It doesn't work as a prank if you're a shooter. You're pranking yourself.
Oh, very geschmack. That's a nice svara. But the Ramban says, I hear, that's very geschmack. And maybe that you want to say that's the pshat, that would be the pshat like Rashi. Very geschmack.
Why not?
What?
So what you have a shooter? He's chaylik.
See, so I'm a tire anyway.
Yeah.
So you should be able to say l'tzurika b'chavim.
Right.
Yeah, you're saying it's not going to be an eitzah. Yeah, I am hurting myself as well.
That should be a swore there, not be
But the Ramban says it's not true because I know Namis. So I'm not being Messiah or anybody. He's going to think I'm doing Avodah Zarah, but I'm not really doing Avodah Zarah. Yep. Okay, so these are the svaras exactly what to say. So let's get it clear. Rashi says that the Gemara could have said Islay Shutzis v'gavei. That means that even though our Gemara's kasha was that one yid has no power to go ask somebody else's thing because the yid is l'tzuri kamachaven, the Gemara could have stuck with the old teretz of what Islay Shutzis v'gavei. That's what Rashi. Since he has a Shutzis, therefore that's why he had a power to ask somebody else's thing. Tosfos says no. Tosfos says, what are you talking about? That's only when the question was ownership. Now it's not a question about ownership, it's a question about intent. It's a question is what he wanted. And since we assume by a yid, if he says something l'shem harim, he obviously doesn't mean it, it's all a joke. So it's a joke. Who cares? Yes, le'shutzis, islay shutzis, less le'shutzis. That's Shitas Tosfos. So what's pshat in Rashi? This is like mamish. This is text. This verse from Chaim Moshe. So the betzim Krega Asakasha. What's this svara l'tzuri kamachaven? What kind of business is this? I don't understand. It's mamish dvarim shabalev. We know. Yet the yid comes in and says he's shraying chayiv v'kayim that I'm shechting l'shem harim. What are we trust him? Why don't we believe him? Yeah, that's the kasha. That's the kasha. That's B'Kreig's kasha. Zok Chaim Oizer that Avada B'Kreig is right. That's Avada, and this word is already going to explain the whole sugya really. That be'etzem avada, a person says l'shem haram avada, he means l'shem haram. There's no reason to assume. None of us. It's all in the world of ein adam moisad avshen shaloi. That what? We had a gemara like this that be'etzem ein adam moisad avshen shaloi. But if you do a ma'isa, what happens? What happens when you do a ma'isa? What happens when you do a ma'isa? When you do a ma'isa, so the ma'isa does it without the person. It's not me doing it; it's the Maisa doing it. If the Maisa does it, a Maisa could ask it, even if it's not yours, right? A person has no power to work against on somebody else's thing, but a Maisa could work. Zokt Chaim Oizer. If a Yid does a Nisuch, so you don't see a Maisa of Avodas Kochavim, because the Maisa doesn't shrai b'chlal. Of course, he might have that intent, and he might have that kavana, and if he has that kavana, we believe him that he has that kavana. But the Maisa doesn't shrai the Avodas Kochavim, because a Yid doing Avodas Kochavim doesn't look like, it's not a Maisa of Avodas Kochavim. It's a Maisa that looks like a Litzuri Kochavim, looks like a prank. It happens to punct B that we know what his intent was. But if it's in the intent, that's the regular another Maisa Davashen Shalai that we believe. It's all in the sugya of a Maisa, in the sugya of a Maisa that a Maisa could be Oisa Davashen Shalai, and we hold that Adam Oisa Davashen Shalai. When he does a Maisa or also a Maisa, he's Osroi. In that world, that's where there's a svara of L'tzurei Kamachavin. And in the world of L'tzurei Kamachavin of Einan Maisa Davashen Shalai, that's where we say that if it's a Yisrael, we see a prank. We don't see a machshava, even though he tells us he has the machshava, and we believe him what he's thinking. But it's the Maisa doesn't shrai it, and since the Maisa doesn't shrai it, so the Maisa can't do it off, and he himself, without doing a Maisa, can't do it off. Yeah. Very geschmack. So if he's there over here, that's only a problem when we have a problem. And I need a Maisa to do it, not he could do it. But when it's Islay Shutvis, there's no problem. It's on the he could answer it without doing a Maisa. He could answer it himself. When he could answer it himself, then we trust him. He said he meant this, and finishing gegangen. And yeah. That's this word from Chaim Oizer, Geschmack word, yeah?
Wow.
Yeah? Geschmack?
Yeah.
Gewaldig. This is my okay, yeah.
One of my is like you wanted to laugh.
Hachamayaskinon, B'Yisrael Mummer. The whole thing of L'tzurei Kamachavin is only by a regular Yisrael, but by Yisrael Mummer, then already we don't say we name on that he's a that there's no svara of L'tzurei Kamachavin. Toshma, the other rights that we asked for, yeah, so the shaila is, so why is Chayiv Hachanami B'Yisrael Mummer? Yeah, we're talking about Yisrael Mummer, so there's no svara of L'tzurei Kamachavin. Amalei Ravacha Breit Rav Ravashi Hisru Boy the Kibul Olav Hasra Mai Amalei Hete Atzmei Lemisa Karmit and the Chamoma Gadol Misa. That Avada, if somebody was if they gave him Hasra clearly, and he was Kibul of Hasra, which is the derech of Hasra, so that, and in such a case Avada, that's going to be considered a Moma Ein L'cha Moma Gadol Misa, and therefore if he said Afal Pikein Amanasken Aniyosa, so he's going to blind a Moma, which is really this Gemara is going to shed some light to the shmuz that we had earlier about how many times you have to do it if you're a mummer, and this Gemara is mashma. I mean, you could be matzka, even like to Rishonim that hold that I need a few times. Having done the Isser for a few times to be called a mummer, but over here he's hit the Asma Labisa, that's going to be a mummer even if he did it only did it once. There is another shmuz in the Rishonim and Achronim, which we have to just briefly mention. Our sugya talks about answering it, right? The shaila, there is a chiddush of the Baal Ma'or that says that even if you that here we're talking about a shchita. If in a case where somebody was shechted, so the question is, even if you don't have, even if we're not going to ask her because ain't other moised davar shein shaloi, but you don't have a shchita, so what's going to be with the shchita, right? That's going to be the shmuz. And so he holds that if somebody asks, even in a case where it's ain't other moised davar shein shaloi, but you won't have a shchita, and the shchita won't be kosher, so you can't kasher the animal. That's the shmuz that they talk about in halacha. And they ask the kasha from our Gemara in the case of beis oichsim besakim v'sheichatin. Over there, right? So the chura, the Gemara says it's a shchita, and still the Gemara asks the kasha, it's another moised davar shein shaloi. Tepik that what? That's the Baal Ma'or. The Baal Ma'or says that the shchita is going to be possible, but partial because I didn't have a kasher shchita. Yeah, that's the shmuz, and the shaila is, it's very, very much totally in the shmuz that we discussed yesterday, which is really a shaila mitzias. When beis oichsim b'sakim v'sheichatin, is each one able to do it on their own, or not able to do it on their own? If you hold, that's what the Shach says, it's not a kash from this Gemara, because in this case, each one could have done it on their own. So then again, we have to answer it. It's not the pshat that if we're going to say that such a shchita ain't other moised davar shein shaloi, but I can't use the shchita for kashrus because right. So the shach, because since there's two sheikhtim and the other sheikhit could have done it completely on his own, like you were tining, right? So therefore, therefore, al karchach, the word is that our Mishnah, the Mishnah is answering it. It's not the word that it's a lack of a kosher shchita, and there's a taz on it. There's ganze cheshbonis on the sugya exactly how to cheshbon through that sugya. But again, the shaila is by beis oichsim besakim v'sheichatin echad l'shum echad b'kol elu v'echad l'shum davar kasha. Are we talking about both of them have a power to do the shchita completely on their own? That's one shmuz. That's negaya the shaila, and the other one is this shchita of the Baal Ma'or that he holds that even if you hold ein other moised davar shein shaloi, but by shchita you have a new problem that even though I'm not answering, but I can't give hechsher, I can't go and shecht, and we can't consider the shchita a kosher shchita. Okay, that's that Gemara. Let's get to the Mishnah. Zok the Gemara ein shechtin le'lusech yamim. Now we're talking about letting the blood run straight into the yam. So if the blood is going to run straight into the yam, so it looks like I'm shechting with the intention that I want it to be a shecht for the god of the yam. I guess it's the same thing. And you can't shecht into kalim because that looks like you're shechting again for avodah zarah. Avo shoichet hu l'soich uga. Shalmai. But he could shecht into some kind of a round a round pond of mayim, yeah. Sagt die Mishnah ubesvina. If you're in a svina, so what are you going to do if you're in a svina, right? You don't want the blood to go to fall on the floor on the svina, and you can't shecht into the yam. So what are you going to do? Besvina. So you shecht al gabe kalim. You shecht on the back of the kalim. You can't shecht into kalim because you have a problem that it looks like avodas kechavim. You can't shecht into the water because that's a problem of shechting l'sech yamim. So what do? You shecht on the backs of kalim. Turn over the kalim and let the blood splash off the kalim and go on, and then run into the yam. That's fine. Because that's the first case of ein shech l'sech yam is a problem that it looks like I'm shechting l'gadid the yam. I'm shechting for the it looks like I'm shechting for avodah zarah. Yeah. Ein shechting l'guma kolika. And there's another problem. Shechting into a guma, that's a problem. And this is a problem with halacha. This is ma'isla halacha. That you can't shecht into a hole. Yeah, if you ever see any, wherever there's a shlachtais, they don't have, that would be the best thing, to have a hole where all the blood goes. No, you don't shecht into a guma. Why? Because that was the derech of the avodah zarah. Yeah. So
Whatever that what is going
the guma kol ikar. Aval oisa guma b'seich beis. So the Gemara is going to explain what exactly this is. Aval oisa guma b'seich beis b'shul sheikanas adam l'seicher. So it seems like a stira. First of all, you don't shecht into a guma, but you could shecht into a hole b'seich beis b'shul sheikanas adam l'seicher, that the blood should run into it.
Must be a slant in the house.
We'll see. We'll see. Ubishok loy yasakein. Shaloi yechake es tzedukim, that you shouldn't be strengthening the hands of the tzedukim. So over here, I just want to say a few points. First of all, Tosfos brings down for Rabbeinu Tam that Rabbeinu Tam wanted to be matter. This is negeh mamish every single day, right? This was negeh for us. Nowadays with drainage, it's not such a problem because you could just let it go into the drain. But in times of Rishonim, this was an issue. Rabbeinu Tam wanted to be matter to shecht into a garbage. Don't shecht if you're shechting in a clean hole. That looks like avodas kachavim, but nobody's going to shecht into a garbage. Yeah. So but Lamaisa, the Tosfos brings a raya from the cheshbon of the sugya that the Gemara doesn't give that eitzah when somebody has a problem. Why don't we have an eitzah? Why don't we have that eitzah of doing? The Gemara has a different eitzah of clearing out a place in the house and it draining down, like you were saying. Why do we have to do a drainage? Let's just shech straight into the garbage. The teretz is Vice says a garbage is still aser. Why is it aser? It's not klar. The Shach says, I don't know, cryptic language. The Shach says because the derech of the tzdukim was to shecht into bayres. I guess he means into all bayres, even if they're dirty. I don't know exactly what he means. Not sure. Okay. Zok the Gemara. And now ubeshuk lo yasakein. So Tosfos is very interesting. Tosfos explains what's the chilik between a shuk and not a shuk. The teretz is very simple because any cheshbon you're going to have in the house, people will interpret it as cleaning the house because you want the house to be clean. But the shuk, nobody cares about the shuk. So since you don't care about the shuk, so why should it be shuk le'yasakein? Because there's no cheshbon, right? In other words, so it looks more like avodas kachavim if you're going to do it in the shuk, if you're going to make a hole in the shuk. Mashenkin in the house, it doesn't look like avodas kachavim because why? Because people want to keep the house clean. Right, so it has nothing to do with the question of maris ayin b'chadrei chadarim and not b'chadrei chadarim. It's completely a cheshbon legabe what a shayla of what it looks like. In the shuk it looks one way, and in the house it looks something else. So that's not a question. It's not going to be telling the famous member of Rav that kol masha asu chachamim mishum maris ayin afilu b'chadrei chadarim enoi. So that's the Tosfos. So that Tosfos points that out, and Tosfos says that's why our Gemara doesn't shtel too. Rav legabe our Mishnah that's bechalkum between the house and the shuk. However, the Yishalmi seems to learn that it's totally in the shaila of that the het of the shuk and the is of the shuk and the chilkim between the house and the shuk is a shaila legabe maris ayin. Okay, so one more last thing is a very interesting tshuva somebody was saying over that when they had the shmuz legabe using music in shuls, in the beginning of the what's called it, right, in the beginning of the Enlightenment, so they wanted to introduce music. In Germany, there was such an issue, right? They had some had it even on Shabbos. The question is the weekday. So there was a shmuz legabe b'chukasem loiselechu. It's such a kind of a shmuz, and there are tshuvas that said that there's two shmuzim. There's one of b'chukasem loiselechu, but there's a new issa of this Gemara of shleichakes tzedukim. That's not just about the goyim, even if it's talking about the not fruma, there's a cheshbon of shleichakes tzedukim that's also a cheshbon, regardless of what the derech of the goyim is another shmuz of shleichakes tzedukim. Sagt Gemara weiter, ein shoichin leilusoich. Sagt Gemara Maishno l'soich yamim v'loi the amri l'sora the yama kashachit. What's the pshat? What's the pshat in our Mishnah? Why did our Mishnah mechalik and our Mishnah said that I can't shecht into the ocean, but I could shecht into a puddle, right? Maishno l'soich yamim v'loi the amri l'sora the yama kashachit, because that looks like I'm shechting to the god of the yam. So into a puddle, even though there's nobody that claims that there's a sorrow of this puddle, but there's something else. Maybe people might think that he's shechting to his reflection, because there were those that never shechted to that. Amarava b'achurim shanu. Takei nechanami. Our Mishnah is talking about. We're talking about a puddle of muddy water. Not we're talking about a puddle with clean water. Vaita ein sheichtin leguma. Oh, so we said in our Mishnah, it's not clear. It says first ein sheichtin leguma klal, and then it says avul oisa guma b'sech beisei. So what's going on over here? Frakti Gemara ein sheichtin leguma klal, and then it says avul oisa guma b'sech beisei. Va'amrit ein sheichtin leguma klal. Amar Abaye reisha beguma shebeshok. That ein sheichtin leguma klal is talking about beshok, and avul oisa hu b'sech beisei. So it's very geschmack. There's a chiluk between shok and bais, which is mavur in the Mishnah as well. Amalei Rava, what do you mean? But the Mishnah seems to introduce shok afterwards. Amalei Rava va'amidik tani seifa ubeshok le'asakain michal the reisha lav beshok askinan. Vais says the reisha when it said ein sheichtin leguma is not talking about b'shok. Hello, my Rava hachikama, like you said. Ein sheichtin leguma kalek b'chlal. Even in the house. Somebody wants to keep his house or his courtyard clean. What does he do? He makes a place. He clears out a place outside the guma. That's v'shoichet. He shechs there. V'shoises v'dam shoises v'yer leguma. He can't shech directly into the guma, but he could shech on the side of the guma and let the blood run into the guma. But in the shuk, you can't even do that, because there, if somebody does such a kind of a thing, if he has a guma, it's very clear that he's trying to do. He obviously doesn't care about the dirt of the shuk, and therefore it must be that his intention is for avodas kochav. Agavorcha, by the way, again, these are cheshbonos that obviously were only in those times. Nowadays, I don't think there's such a svara of b'shuk liyasakeh, because nowadays we don't have the shuk like they had. Right? We don't have in those days, the shuk was a very, very, very dirty place. There was all different kinds of waste from the animals and all different kinds of mud. It was a really, really messy place. And nobody would even have a havamina that somebody's trying to keep the place a little clean. But nowadays, the fakert, we have the street sweepers and everything's nice and clean. So then obviously you won't have the svara of b'shuk lo yasakein. So the Gemara writes, Tanya kavas the Rav. First, a brayso like Rava. Haya mach b'svina ele makam b'svina lishchayt. Moitzi yadei chutz l'svina v'sha haychet. Again, we have the svina. He's up the creek, right? Up the creek, without a paddle, pun intended. When you're in a svina, right? Because you can't shecht out to the svina, because that's l'sech yam. You can't shecht inside into a keli. So what are you going to do? You keep the blood all over the place? What's the eitzah? So this price has a new eitzah. He sticks his hand out of the svina against the wall of the svina. That's fine. If it runs along the wall of the svina, that's okay. But you can't shecht into a gum at all. Somebody wants to keep his chotzer clean. What does he do? You shecht outside the guma, but you can let it trickle back into the guma. And if he does it, tzarich bedika acharov. So what does this mean, tzarich bedika acharov? This is a very, very interesting shmuz, and it's a tremendous machlokes rishonim. Rashi says, "Tzorach b'dika achrav zok Rashi that shema minhu lavodas kechavim v'yibadlu mipita yumiyenoi." And if it turns out that he's going to be problematic, so then they will from then on stop using his pas and yayim because he's a min, right? That's how Rashi learns. However, the Rambam says that it's not the pshat it's not that we do the bedika, and once you do the bedika, from then on you will have a problem. Tzarach bedika acharov, and therefore until you did the bedika, everything's asa for him. Until we prove it, yeah. So fakir. So the question is he Do we say that he's guilty until proven innocent, or do we say he's innocent until proven guilty? The mashmais of Rashi is that he's innocent until proven guilty, but the Rambam clearly says the other way, that he is guilty until proven innocent. Like the Rambam, we have to know, and this is the shmuz exactly why the Brisa uses such an interesting lashon. Yeah, what's this? Why we use a different language of tzarich b'dika acharov for his if he's also, why don't you say psula? He's also until now. Yeah, that's a big shmuz in the achronim. So no one's asking me, but I would just suggest a new pshat. We're saying more than that. We're not just talking about if it's us or it's mutter, right? We're telling Bezdin or whoever's in charge that they should investigate this. That's a whole nother shlav. We want you to know there's a guy here who's problematic, and don't just leave it here. Be baidik. So you want to know why over here it doesn't say psula and not psula, why it says a different language? And there are those that want to say that that's why Rashi said it's only mikana laba. I'll tell you why. It's only once we prove it. I'll tell you why, Zok the Rambam, why we said tzarich b'dika achrov. Tzarich b'dika achrov. The Bryce is coming to tell you a new chiddush, that you should go investigate. Don't just leave it at this. Don't leave it to rumor mills. Don't leave it to as is. Go investigate. Look into it. That's another halacha. That's why it said it a different lashon, maybe. Okay, Zok the Marvaita. This is the last Mishnah. Now we're going to have the last Mishnah. This is a Mishnah that's a different Shiloh. Here's the Shmuz is, what's the Shiloh? The Shiloh is that somebody shechted something that looks like it's karbonis, and memela, and with choishish, the people are going to think that it is, that it's mutal lishchait b'chutz. Agavorcha, there is a Shvara Torah, that the Shvara Torah that says that it's not a question of Maras Ayin. The problem is that it does become hektish. And not the word is, it's not just a Maras Ayin, the Kashmuz, it's a halacha. That the problem is that it became hektish when somebody said that he's doing this l'shem oilo, l'shem shlam, l'shem chatas. It became hektish, and that's the problem. That's the Torah. But most Rishonim besides the Torah don't learn like that. So the Elgi Mishnah Sheikh l'shem oilo, l'shem zvachim, l'shem asham tali, l'shem pesach, l'shem toida, shchitas psula. Yeah, and the Gemara is going to explain why we have by some of these things. Some of these things, it can't be that he made it. He was makdisha for these karbanis, because some of these karbanis are not ba b'neder v'nedava. So how could it be that they're included in this list? We'll see. Reb Shimon machshir. Why is Reb Shimon machshir? So there's two pshatim. So Rashi says the Reb Shimon is machshir. Why? Because he holds. So Rashi holds the loy chayish l'marasayin. Shimon doesn't care about Maris Ayin. Tosis says that the Riva says that a different pshat. Riva says a different pshat. Riva says that you stole to a shita for Reb Shimon that we had in Menachos that we just got finished many times. Reb Shimon's shita is that shleis nadiv kederach hamisnadvim, it's not called hektish. So memela, doesn't look like marasayim, because since this is not the derech hamisnadvim, this is b'chalal not the derech hamisnadvim. So memela what? So memela it's not marasayim, and that's why Reb Shimon is machshir over here. So somebody shechted one of these things. We shechted l'shem oil l'shem zvach. V'echel l'shem davar kasher, and somebody had a good kavan or shchitas psula. Ha shoiched l'shem chatos, l'shem osham, l'shem vaday, l'shem bechor, l'shem ma'isa, l'shem temura, shchitas kshera. All these things are not ba b'neder v'nedava, so therefore shchitas kshera. Zeh klal. Zaka kol shnida v'nida v'ashech l'shmoi aser, v'shein nida v'nida v'ashech l'shmoi kasher. Zok the Gemara. Let's go through Zok the Gemara. Just the chedushim of each thing. Hashech l'shem oila asham tali. And so one of the things was asham tali. Frank the Gemara asham tali bar nida v'nida vu. What's going on over there? Asham tali. You can't be a nida v'nida. So how could it be that this guy is going to be mechayiv himself to do asham tali? He for sure. Everyone knows that he's not chayiv a carbon. If he's not chayiv a carbon, what's going to be over here? Why should anybody think that he's making this as a carbon? So the Hamani Rebbe Lazi, the Amma Misnadev Adam Asham Tali B'chol Yoim. This is Rebbe Lazi Bava, I think, that holds that you could a person could be Misnadev Asham Tali B'chol Yoim. Now, Agavorcha is a very interesting Zach. The Gemara says on Rabbi Eliezer ben Bava that he would bring a Arsham Tali every single day of the year, except one day. One day was the day after Yom Kippur, because over there he was for sure had a kapara the day after Yom Kippur, so he didn't have any nerve that he was over any isser. So I heard that there's a letter from the Rogatchover that he what's called it? He dated it instead of dating it when it was. He dated it Yom Shel Rabbi Eliezer ben Bava. It was Yom Shel Rabbi Eliezer ben Bava. That was it was Yud Aleph Tishrei. It's the one day that he didn't bring a carbon. He called it the Yom Shel Rabbi Eliezer ben Bava. That was that one day that was unique. Anyway, so the Gemara Vayta, Amani Rabbi Eliezer Hidam, and Masad Avad Mashum Tali B'chol Yom. Pesach, the Gemara Bar Nidev and Nidevu. Yeah. Zimna Kvi Alei. Amar Aboishia Shani Pesach Hayel Vafreshos Kol Hashana Kulam. Since you could be mafresh the Pesach Kol Hashana Kula, and then what? And if you bring it, as a carbon the rest of the year, it's a shlamim. So vice it looks like a shlamim, and therefore it looks like he's bringing a carbon shlamim, which is bechutz. Amar Rabbi Yani Leishanu Elo Tmimim Avo Bali Chaim Meidi Yediyah. This is only talking about. The only problem, we only have a problem. It only looks like he's bringing karbanos only if it's tmimim. Only if these animals were complete, there was no mum. But if it's about mum, maybe everyone knows that he's obviously not bringing. He was obviously not being makdash as a carbon. Even if it's about mum, it's still going to be also. Why? Because zimnin deramim le'mili amum avlo. Maybe the mum is going to be covered over, and no one's going to know. So therefore, we still have to be chayshish that people are going to think that you brought a carbon b'chutz. Hashayich l'shem chatas. Am Rabbi Yechon l'shanu l'sheinu mechuyev chatas. If he's not mechuyev chatas, aval mechuyev chatas. Maybe, but right, but if he's mechuyev chatos, then even though a chatos is normally not, but this guy's mechuyev in a chatos, so maybe he's bringing maybe he meant his own chatos b'chutz. So he didn't say l'shum chatasi, so no one thinks that he's talking about his chatas. Rabbi Yochanan is taka only talking about in a case when somebody says l'shem chatasi. Don't think that the Mishnah is saying b'chol oifen, even if he says l'shem chatasi. No, if he says l'shem chatasi and he's mechuyev in a chatas, it will be aser. L'shum temura amar Rabbi Eliezer leishanu el she'en le'zevach b'zech beisek. Aviyesh le'zevach b'zech beisek ema emuri amebe. Maybe he did a temura even though it's not right next to each other, and he can still do a temura. He didn't say l'shem temuras zivchi. No, this chiddush is that we're talking about ba'omer l'shem temuras zivchi. If he said l'shem temuras zivchi and he has one in his house, then it will be possible. But obviously, if he doesn't have one in his house, it won't be possible. Zaklal lasuye mai. What's the Mishnah says? Zaklal kol shnei divinidiv is chayiv, kol she'en divinidiv is not chayiv. Mai lasuye olas nazir. The olas nazir, since it's Bob and Neder and Nedava, so therefore, if somebody says I'm bringing Olas Nazir, it's going to be possible because it looks like Shchut Chos. Ma'od Tema Halay Neder Halay Nadar. Yeah, I would think that is what's the chiddush? Because I would think that, what do you mean? Everyone knows that he's not a Nazir. No, Halay Nadar. Right, I would think that Kamashma that no, aim another bitziner. Since you could do Naziris for 30 days and no one will chap, he's not going to look too ogavaksin. Maybe he's another bitziner, and therefore it's taka going to be it's possible. Shane nidev lasuye what lasuye oilais yolades to be marba oilas yolades. So there's two gersois in the next shtickle Gemara. One version is Amar Rabbi Eliezer leishanu el shein leisha aviyesh leisha ema lishma hu oisa. That this whole halach is talking about dafka she'ein la'isha, and if it's ain't la'isha, but if it's yesh la'isha, maybe you should be chayshish that maybe he was bringing this oilus yoledes for her needs. He didn't say l'shem ishti. That he said clearly that it's for oilus ishti, and that's where Rabbi Eliezer is saying his chiddush. Pshita Maudetema and Isa the older Kala Havale. I would think that maybe there's no makom to be choishish that no one's going to think that it's for his child, because if she gave birth, everyone would know that she gave birth. That right? Kamash Malan Ema Ipule Apil. That no, they're going to think that maybe she miscarried. The Maisa Rashi brings out another pshat which Rashi likes better, which is, and this will end that the takes out the whole thing, the whole Gemara. There's no Rebbe Lezer and there's no Rebbe Vo, and it just, this is the gersa. Lasuye what? Lasuye elis yeledes. Mao the tema emi ludi yalid kamash malon. The imisa the oilid color islay, and we're talking about a person that has a wife. And the pshat is that the question is, what's the chiddush of our Mishnah? Lasuye what? Lasuye oilus yeledes. That what I would think that oilus yeledes, since even though it's not baba nedav and adava, but maybe they gave birth. Kamash malon, that if that imisa the oilid color isla, and therefore there's no makom there's no makom to bring a carbon. It's not going to be nasa because there's no maris ayin. Hadron Allah HaShoichet, Hadron Allah HaShoichet, Hadron Allah HaShoichet. Tomorrow, Bez Hashem, we're going to start El Treifus, Bez Hashem. Very exciting, Bez Hashem. A whole new, Nacha Chizik, another, a whole new beginning, Bez Hashem.